Good evening, gentlemen, and a few of you ladies that may be listening. This is Spiritual Art of War, back at it again with another episode. And this time we're going to talk about something that's happened over the last few days. And this is a conversation basically that I had with two different people. It was brought to me, wasn't even looking into it, but it was concerning music. Both of these guys are Latino. One is Mexican, one is Honduran. Okay. And one of them, the Mexican dude, he's actually into rap. Like he actually raps and he produces. Okay. And he was telling me that the other day he happened to start listening to some Afrobeats. Okay? And I think I know how that probably ended up happening. I don't even know how that happened, but I think there's somebody that we kind of know mutually. And I think he might have introduced him to it because they kind of hang out. So he was saying that he said Afrobeats is so good as a genre that he stopped even listening to rap. Mind you, this guy actually raps. Like, he pretty much put out some music independently. He's into, of course, he even speaks Spanish fluently. Like, he's born and raised in Houston. He speaks Spanish fluently. But he raps and he produces as well. And, there's people in the underground, Houston scene that he kind of knows. And in fact, there's a female that he pointed me out to that's actually deals heavily in the current Houston rap scene, and he knows her as well. So he's really serious about the underground music scene in Houston. But he said since he got introduced to Afrobeats, he cannot stop listening to it. And he himself, out of his own mouth, he says that this may end up being the biggest genre on the planet in a few years. This is out of his own mouth. Now, a second person today, this is what making me do this today. Honduran. Okay? So, he's chilling. I'm chilling. We're at work. In the section that we're in, somebody had a loudspeaker, and it's a section in where I work at, where playing music is not going to be, it's not an issue of for anybody because of just that area that it's in. So anyway, this is kind of the way to kind of keep the energy or the morale or whatever. Keep people kind of letting the time pass by with some good tunes. Well, anyway, I don't know who it was, but somebody had an Afrobeat playlist. So the Honduran dude, he was like, man, this music, I don't know what they're saying, but I like the rhythm. And it was multiple songs that was playing, back to back. The song that was playing was, I believe, a WizKid song. I forgot the name of it. Starts with an A. It's like Anote or something like that. And he liked it. And then it was a DeVito song that came on. And he liked that. He was bobbing his head to it. And there was a Runtown song. These are different artists. I forgot the Runtown song, but it was one of his big hits a few years back. The DeVito song was Fall by DeVito. But it was multiple other songs, Shalapapi, Laho, and he liked it. Mind you, he never heard the genre before. But he's I like this music. I don't know what they're talking about, but I like it. So these are people that are just getting that. The guy today, he just heard Afrobeats for the first time, never heard it before in his life. No, doesn't know any of these artists. Never heard. He don't know who Burna Boy is. I said, you know who Burna Boy is? He said, I don't know who Burna Boy is. You don't even know who Burna Boy is. So we're talking about he's first time hearing the genre. Likes it off the rip. So this shows that globally, because if you go to other countries, you'll hear this stuff. I remember even watching one of these guys that goes to the DR a lot. I forgot. I think I know it was BMT Travels or it was one of these other guys, but he goes to DR quite a bit. He has like a lot of contact out of the DR, and he was walking down this daytime, and the bar or the club, it was like a daytime club or whatever, or bar, and they had the music playing outside, and the music that was playing was Afrobeat music, and that was like the whole time he was walking back and forth through that area. As far as that club, because he walked past it, it was Afrobeats playing. When he came back, they were still playing Afrobeats. So the thing about it is, when it comes to the music industry, people are starting to choose and select other genres of music. And the thing about it is, rap has probably hit its peak. Doesn't mean that there's not still good rap artists, but this happens with a lot of genres. Okay, even R&B, soul, and hip hop R&B, which hip hop R&B was like more in the 90s. And there's some songs that are still like popular, but for whatever reason, the younger generation never really got on R&B the way it was in the 90s growing up. Because even, I know for a fact, growing up in the 90s, like that was my coming of age period. R&B was a bigger genre than rap. But what happened was, as hip hop kind of blew up during that golden age in like 87 to 89, especially the East Coast version, and then you transition into the 90s, there was like a time frame of like when the East Coast rappers kind of like hit their plateau in that period. I'm not saying they still weren't dropping good stuff, but there was a period between like the Big Daddy Kane, the Cool G rap, the EPMD, you know what I'm saying? That Public Enemy and all those, a lot of guys, Special Ed, a lot of guys out of New York during that late 80s period, LL Cool J. And then there was like this transition period where it was kind of like, I wouldn't say it was dead, because they still was pumping out hip hop, but R&B kind of took over because it was the New Jack Swing, and then there was a hip hop R&B. So hip hop R&B and New Jack Swing kind of like took over the flavor during that time, okay, for a brief window. Then I think New York, I would say, kind of got back in a little bit, like when Wu-Tang dropped like 36 Chambers, and then you got Biggie and stuff like that, and then they kind of came back in the game. Because remember, West Coast kind of stole the thunder during that time, okay? You had Nas, of course, drop, but you could see that there was like a waning of influence from West Coast rap from East Coast rap with West Coast. So what I'm saying is this, is that these type of trends of genres becoming more popular and others losing their popularity is a very common thing. And the thing about it is, we'll see how things go in the next few years. If the world doesn't descend into utter chaos, what happens with the hip hop rap genre? Okay, because if you look at the last year has really been dominated by Kendrick Lamar. As far as the headlines, it's been the Kendrick Lamar, Drake beef, and really more than anything, Kendrick Lamar. It's been like the year of Kendrick Lamar, even down with the Super Bowl. So a lot of people got to understand is that this is, I think that the beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar kind of actually hurt rap in a way, because it took away the spotlight from other rappers, and no rappers could really drop for a long time. And now you have like these rappers that are dropping, and and people are really not even talking about them that much. You had the Clips album that was like, kind of talked about, let the Lord sort them out. And then you had, I think Ghostface Killer's about to drop an album. I think Raekwon just dropped the album. But Ghostface Killer, I've seen, is about to drop Supreme Clientele 2. Mind you, I'm not really like into listening to rap. However, I kind of keep up with what's going on, just for the sake of just not losing what's kind of going on and what's trending amongst, you know, the masses. Don't want to be completely ignorant. Don't want to be out here an old dude not realizing what the hell is going on. Okay, when you get to that point, you're not going to be able to understand. And especially if you're somebody who wants to mentor the youth before they start making problems. You want to tell, you know, young men, you know, what to look out for and how to operate. It's important for you to know what's going on. Okay? Yeah, this is what happened in the 80s. A lot of the parents and the older people from that boomer generation, they didn't know that they didn't understand what was going on with gangs and crack and things like that, and drug dealing and all that stuff. They didn't understand that. And by the time they understood it, it was too late for them to get a hold of everything. Okay? And that's because they wasn't paying attention. They wasn't paying attention to the influence. And then even, you know, culturally, with gangster rap and things like that, they didn't understand that because they were still paying attention to what they liked, what they had going on versus what their children were into. And that's why a lot of stuff took them by surprise. You can see interviews in the 80s where parents just didn't know what the hell was going on. You know, the kid was in a gang that didn't even know. They didn't even know, they heard about the gangs, or they didn't know that their kid was in the gang. They didn't even know the signs, like the colors and the lingo that their kid is speaking when they're in the house, or if they get on the house phone. You know, back then, it's before cell phones. They get on the house phone and they saying certain coded words that are actually what gang members use. They didn't even know this. They just thought it was just some new slang that the young kids say. Now realizing your kid's in the whole gang, right? So when you look at the trends, the genre of music on a global scale, see, a lot of people in America think that they're going to control the trend of where music is going. Especially those that kind of want to hold on to the influence of hip-hop, which many of them do agree that hip-hop is falling off. And I've talked about it before. In fact, I've actually done a couple of music things which I need to upload. I've talked about it before. Music has changed in the last few years, in part because of the passing away of some big name artists, some artists that were really on their trajectory to becoming really superstars, you know. And then there was a couple of things that kind of happened, and that's the reason why, if you think about it, that's the reason why some of these hip-hop artists, they're doing songs, they're Afrobeat artists, man. Gunna got like multiple songs on his last album with Afrobeat artists. I think I know he got a song with Burna Boy. He got another song, I think, with somebody else, and he's actually done a song with Asake called Happiness. So, and you know Chris Brown, who's a hip-hop and R&B, he's a hip-hop and R&B artist. He has done songs with a bunch of, I think, DeVito. I mean, he's done actual, like, Afrobeat songs. We're not even talking about he's done a song with Afrobeat artists. He's done an Afrobeat song. It's all the Love You Every Day. So this is where the trend is going. See, the thing about it is, when you go outside of the U.S., you know what the vibe is. So when you're in the U.S., you think that it's like, oh, it's NBA YoungBoy. It's this, that. If you're a younger generation person. If you're like more of a 30 plus, you don't know until you travel. And then when you travel, you're like, oh, this is what they be on outside of the U.S.? And then you see that trend following and coming. See, Afrobeats is not a industry plant genre. It organically grew in popularity. It organically took a slow growing process. It was not GMO rushed music. Okay? And people are tired of the negative energy that comes from a lot of hip hop music. Not all, but a lot. I even talked about it before. Rhapsody, a female rapper, dropped an album that was like more of a throwback Lauryn Hill type album. It was not pushed, but you know who's pushed? Glorilla, Sexy Red. So that's what the masses want. You can, some of these guys that are saying that no, that's what's being force fed. You're lying. Because the thing about it is, if you actually play this for the youth, they don't want to hear that stuff. They don't want to hear that stuff. And there's people out there that actually are actively trying to, because of they're worried about the influence of music from outside the US, like Afrobeats or Amapiano, they're actively trying to sabotage the influence of the genre, and it's not going to work. And I can tell you why I know it's not going to work to sabotage Afrobeats or Amapiano. Because the people that travel who are influencers, they hear these songs and then they like them when they travel overseas and they bring them back here. That's the reason why a lot of your IG baddies, a lot of the IG baddies, they listen to Afrobeats. They put them in their IG stories. They put them in their reels. Okay? Like listen, when the women are playing the music, they are going to influence what's going to be played, what the men are going to play for their girls. You're not going to be able to get around it. You know what I'm saying? It's just like Drake said on the Scorpion album, on the songs 8 out of 10. You can hate all you want if you're a dude. If you're one of those guys that's like a xenophobic, you don't want any type of influence from other quote-unquote black people outside the U.S., it's not going to matter. Because at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? Your mama's pressing play, your sister's pressing play, your wifey. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to matter. It's just like when you had men that don't like Drake. Your girl like Drake. You better find some songs in the rotation in a playlist that you could be cool with. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think you're going to be talking to an H-Town baddie, right? And you're not going to be hearing Drake playing. He got 100 hits. Huh? He got 100 hits, man. I'd be forgetting about some of his hits. Okay? I'd be forgetting about some of them. I'd be like, oh, damn, I forgot about this song. Yeah, so it's where music is going is they can try and force certain artists, and they can try and do bots. If you look at a genre like outside of the US, because they don't do this with foreign artists. They're not going to go out of their way to pump up like a Tyler, which I'll get into I'll have to get into the Tyler situation and actually go a little bit more detailed into that situation with Tyler. They're not going to force like people think. See, this is part of the problem with a lot of people in America. A lot of people in America don't understand what's going on outside. So when an artist overseas is getting big in their home country, and then they hit the rest of their continent and they start to hit other places, and that's what happened with a lot of artists from Africa, is that they got big in their respective countries, whether it was Ghana, Nigeria, or South Africa. And then because they blew up, they become a superstar in their country. Then they begin to expand out to other countries. They become big there on the continent. And then they go to Europe, because Europe has a large population of, black people from Africa. And they're going to have that secondary audience to go to them. And then what happens is, because those people from those countries that came from Africa are integrated with those societies in Europe, particularly like the UK and France and Germany, then it starts to spread. And a lot of people don't understand how interconnected a lot of these European countries are. And then before you know it, they're doing, big shows in Europe, and you won't even understand like how they got so big. So what happens is, like, they start to see a trajectory of their superstardom. Most of these artists are going to be signed to major labels that are connected to the overseas branch of these like big labels, and then they'll just start bringing them over to the US. And sometimes when they come to the US, they might start off in like arenas and not stadiums, but they're building up their audience. And you got to understand is that these artists are willing to do these shows because their money goes a lot farther in their respective countries. So when they do these 5,000 to 10,000, arenas and spaces, that's still a lot of money for them. So they'll gladly hit a circuit and hit different cities where they have the analytics that their fans are there, because they know like where a lot of their fans are in these different cities in the US and Canada. So they'll hit those spots, and then before you know it, they get bigger. And then what happens is when they have that one hit that crosses over finally, you get people that don't understand, and they're scared of the influence, and they start to say, oh, this is a plant. This is a plant. They're trying to force this person on us. And it's like, okay, keep believing that. Because organically rising artists have more loyal fans than those that are forced upon the masses. Like, look at this Tommy Richmond guy. I totally forgot about him. Heard a song. I was like, oh, I forgot about this guy. If you want to talk about somebody who appears forced, he appears more forced than any artist that's coming from overseas. Because what people understand about overseas artists have a high failure rate in the US. Like, the only one that really blew up in the last 10 to 15 years is Adele. Before that, Amy Winehouse. And Amy Winehouse is probably like on a trajectory of going up. But Amy Winehouse was like the last person. I mean, not that they don't have people that have hits, okay? Because there's, especially out of Britain, there's always like artists out of Britain that will have like a major top 10, top 5, and even sometimes a number 1 hit, okay? I can think about Jessie J. You got Natasha Bedingfield. Of course, you talk about Amy Winehouse, Adele, Corinne Bailey Rae. Corinne Bailey Rae had a big hit back in the day. Fifi Dobson. I think Fifi Dobson was from Canada. Fifi Dobson had a song called Everything that was on the soundtrack that was a big hit back in the day. She had Take Me Away and Everything. See, listen, bro. Listen, man. I'm really a music guy. And I'm saying this while driving. Not looking at no computer. I'm not looking at no phone, Googling nothing. Okay? You know what I'm saying? So I'm really a music guy. So when I'm talking about music, trust me, your boy knows what he's talking about when it comes to this subject. I'm not one of those casuals. Plus, I actually got someone related to me who's in the music industry. Okay? Like, for real. Those who are close to me know already. You know what I'm saying? So, are there plants that exist? You damn skippy, they got plants. I mean, but plants can only go so far before, they can only go as far as the people are willing to accept them. Okay? Like Cardi B. Some people can say Cardi B was a plant. Why? Because Cardi B, she had no intention of being a rapper, at least when she was on that reality show. But as the reality show kicked off and she kind of got a name and people liked her personality, they're like, hey, let's throw a little mixtape out there. Let's throw something out there. And it kind of hit. Somebody wrote her songs, showed her how to deliver the lyrics. She already has a personality. She has a background story to go with what she's talking about. And she blew up. And I would say, I would be shocked if Cardi B's album, when it drops in September, I would be shocked if it's not big. I'd be shocked because even though rap is falling off, there's personalities that are still engaging and they have a loyal enough fan base that they're going to drive sales naturally. Like, they're going to drop. Now, is her album going to be probably as big as her first one? Bro, that's not going to happen, bro. I mean, it's been a long time since she dropped that album. And I even sometimes forget how big that album was. And if that album, I got to look up the stats. That album might be diamond. That album, her first album, and I didn't even listen to it. I just know that she had a lot of big hits. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not really into rap like that, but I keep up with stuff. And I'll tell you this. I remember when the Houston Rodeo came, and the biggest show in the history of the Texas Rodeo at the time. I don't know if somebody else broke it recently, but it was Cardi B, bruh. It was Cardi B. And I was in that area. I was in that area that night, bruh. Like, I think I might have been driving through or something like that. And, bruh, like, I even talked to a few people that were, like, going to the concert or something like that. And they were like, bro, Cardi B was, like, big time. Like, and it's crazy for somebody who really wasn't, like, a natural talent rapper to be, because of her personality. Atlantic got her. They put her on that 360 deal, you know what I'm saying? And they just put a machine behind her. But at the end of the day, it held. It held, bruh. And she been kind of like not wanting to drop anything. She did a few features and things like that, but I'd be shocked. And I think what it is, there's a wave of female artists that I think are able to galvanize their base. There's a handful of male artists like your Kendrick Lamar, Drake, that's able to galvanize a base of fans. J. Cole probably to a lesser degree too. You know, but a lot of things happen, bro, in hip hop. A lot of things happen in hip hop. I feel like if Nicki Minaj were to drop an album, it'll be big, because she has a big fan base, and I think she would, you know, make those type of, you know, she's very good at those crossover hits. You know what I'm saying? So, but when you look at it, I could even go down the rundown. And I'm kind of just free flowing. You know, of course, you're talking about the rise of Afrobeats, but we're going to talk about the music industry in general. And I'll say this is that there's a few deaths in hip hop or in rap that really stole the thunder. And I've talked about this even, you know, with some people, and they kind of see it too. Takeoff dying from the Migos, that hurt. Where they were going. You know, I believe Offset just dropped an album. I've seen that he had a song with J.I.D. who I've heard about, but I never heard his music. I clicked on the little music video. It was interesting. It was definitely sonically more layered than I expected for someone like, you know, Offset or whatever. And but there's not many artists that can really drop big albums these days. And I think the Migos, if they were still around with Takeoff as a group, I still think that they would still be dropping because some songs, because there was no group like them. And they're able to, you know, even the songs that dropped like before Takeoff died were like pretty big songs. So, I mean, they have when you see a group that has their own style and they have a penchant for making hits, undeniable hits, you know what I'm saying? And then with Offset tied to Cardi B, I mean, you want to have some eyeballs on you. You know what I'm saying? So, and then you got, what's another situation? Yeah, you know, Juice WRLD. I think I talked about it before. You know, Juice WRLD. He passed away. You got XXXTentacion. You got Pop Smoke. I mean, those were just major blows, bruh. Like, that's major blows. That is, I can't even think of an equivalent. That's like if 50 Cent dropped Wanksta and then he died. You know what I'm saying? He never got to drop, you know, In the Club, at least while he was alive. have that run with Many Men and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what Pop Smoke was on that trajectory. And he gone. King Von. I can't even compare King Von, because to a certain degree, King Von kind of remind at least his storytelling is kind of like Cool G rap or something. He passed away. Then you got Juice WRLD. Juice WRLD was like probably like you could say like Kendrick level. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even a fan of Kendrick, but I'm just thinking about somebody who could really rap, put some songs together. And mind you, he dropped Lucid Dreams, which was like a pop crossover mega smash hit, one of the biggest songs in the last 10 years. And so, and he could really rap, like he can really after he died, I knew about the Lucid Dream song since, Sting had sued over the sample. But I went back and I saw the freestyle that he did for like 30 plus minutes or something crazy. And I was like, yeah, they done lost a big one. You know what I'm saying? Mac Miller was never going to be like that big. He had a space kind of like similar to Russ. Maybe he could have been as big as Russ, because Russ is way bigger than what Mac Miller was. But Russ is like a niche hip hop artist. He's not. It's going to be hard for him to ever be a huge hip hop artist. You know what I'm saying? So what it is like, when you look at some of these things, you're like, yeah, these guys dying kind of hurt that Gen Z. Because those are the Gen Z guys. Those guys are all young, outside of Takeoff. But a lot of them guys that were young. Young, promising stars. And think about it, when it comes to a genre, you need about like 10 to 12 people that represent the genre in that era. You get what I'm saying? You need 10 to 12, and it could be a group. It could some of them can be groups. So when you go back into the 90s, like the mid 90s, you had like more than that. That's why hip hop was getting so strong in the mid 90s, because you got Nas, you got Jay-Z, you got Biggie, you got Pac, you got Wu-Tang. So Wu-Tang is like a group. You could go ahead and say that they represent it, right? Then you add in other people that are in that era that were representing. Master P, E40, Too Short, right? You start adding up these different people. You could even say to a lesser degree, Da Brat, just representing Atlanta, So Def for Jermaine Dupri. So you can kind of look at like this, 10 to 12 artists that are representing the genre. Yes, there are other artists there, but we're talking about people that made that era distinct. Okay? I wouldn't even, like, Craig Mack would not be in that level, even though Craig Mack kind of kicked off the Bad Boy run, right? You could even still say LL during that time would be among those people, because he had some mega hits during that time as well. Funny story, he actually took doing it, with the beat for doing it was actually Biggie's original beat. In fact, Biggie was the one who curtailed that beat to I think Tone and Pope, I think Track Masters, I think made that beat. That's why it has Brooklyn in the background. I found that out just the other day. That's crazy. Because when I was younger, when that came out, I'm like, because the background having Brooklyn in there was already added in there, because Biggie had a plan with that song with that Brooklyn chant in the background. So when LL Cool J was working on his album and he heard that song, that beat, the instrumental played, he wanted it. So what he did is he added in, Raised Out in Creed, but Raised Out in Brooklyn. That's why he had to put the Brooklyn in there, reference to Brooklyn inside the song to fit the Brooklyn chant, which is crazy. You know, LL Cool J, he's a monster. Okay? Don't get it twisted. He's actually probably one of the pioneers of modern rap, for real, for real. Like, if you really know your hip hop, there's so many rappers that would not even have been around if LL didn't do the way LL did it. LL actually is a reason why certain rappers were able to rap about women a certain way. Okay? Because he kind of brought that into the game, and he can really rap, like battle rap too. He can really rap. So, you know, and he was young doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like young. Like he was still in high school when he dropped his first album. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, and that's how it is sometimes with certain pioneer rappers or any genre. People kind of forget those early guys that have inspired others towards their greatness as well. You know what I'm saying? And LL's one of them guys that you really can't. You have to put him in there as like one of the top. I'll put it like this: if somebody says that I'll put it like this: when it comes to rankings, right? Like top 10 rankings. Whenever you say the top 10, there are certain people that if they're mentioned within the top 10, even if you don't agree with that top 10, you allow it to pass. Like, okay, it's just like if somebody says Kobe's, like no one's ever gonna, probably no one in modern right now would ever say Kobe's not top 10. But like if you say Steph is top 10, no one's going to argue really against you, even though you can technically say there's probably 11 to 12 players you can technically argue that are better than him. But you're not going to fight against it. It's the same thing with LL. If you're really a hip-hop person and someone says LL's top 10 all time and you really know hip-hop, you're not going to disagree with him, because if he's looking at the totality of the body of work and everything like that, you can't even really argue. And then you have to talk about it, you know, impact on the rap game. You know what I mean? So, but rap is a dying genre, because I don't think that a lot of people are able to, the younger generation, because of the kind of vibe that they're on, they're the ones that are choosing like what's likable out there, and it's just not hitting. And they don't like anything they don't like anything too deep. They don't like too much wordplay. They don't like the artistry as much. And that's just what it is. And that's making the quality of the genre fall. And there's an oversaturation of people trying to get into it because there's money into it, even as an independent artist, and their barrier of entry is very low. Okay? Which you would think that many people getting into it may make the competition better. Like Afrobeats has so many people trying to make Afrobeat songs that are hungry to make it big, because this could take their family out of poverty. It's actually making Afrobeats extremely competitive, to where you get a lot of guys that are just popping out the woodworks every year or two. There's like a new artist out of Afrobeats that drops, that's like, you know, you're like, dang, he got some good stuff. And you might not hear him now, but maybe by 2 years, you might hear him. He might end up doing a feature with one of the artists in America. And then you go back and listen to his discography and be like, oh, snap, he got some fire. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's what it is, man. I'm going to probably have to continue this on another day. But I'm going to probably get into I'm going to do some music stuff here and there, because some stuff is dropping. So I'll kind of, you know, keep in track on what's going on in regards to everything when it comes to like the music industry and kind of where it's going and the influence. So let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next episode.